Hello, people. Quick one before we get started. This is a very rough proof of concept more than anything. It's kind of going to be very rough around the edges. We are only really putting up because the ads we discussed were pretty interesting, and it'll be kind of cool in a few weeks, maybe months, to come back and see how things have changed and how much the product has changed. And it's also been a long time since, we messed around with the YouTube backend and chapter markers and stuff like that, which will be kind of cool to play around with. So this is very much a case of no offense taken if you don't watch it. It's much more for us than it is for you. And without further ado, let's go. We are going to look through some commercials, TV ads, online videos, I guess.
Yeah.
I think all three of mine have been on TV.
Two of mine have. One of mine hasn't.
So we've each picked three, and we're going to show them to each other, basically talk about what we think works pretty well. Hopefully not what we don't think works well, because I don't really want to be here slating companies that are bigger than us and where there's way more budget than we'd ever work with. But yeah, I mean, do you want to go first or shall I go first? All right, I'll go first.
Go first? Cool.
I will present a tab.
What time should we leave tomorrow?
I think about 8. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that sounds about right. What time should we leave tomorrow?
I told you, 8.
What time should we leave tomorrow?
We're leaving at 8, Jane.
What time should we leave tomorrow?
We should leave at 8, love.
Bloody hell.
I started
off all right in the field. Bloody hell. It's a good ad though.
Yeah. So, as somebody who has had family members with Alzheimer's and dementia, it was kind of like it hit a chord.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's made by the Alzheimer's Society, and I couldn't find like a production company that was attached to it. I think it may have been. So it was directed by a guy called Billy Boyd Cape, and he's done like quite a lot of brand work like Nike, Volkswagen, but he's also done work with Cadbury and Age UK.
Okay.
And I watched that one because I was thinking, okay, it might be kind of similar to this one. And it was actually really interesting because that one was more lighthearted. It was about like loneliness and, how old people are treated differently and so many people are lonely. So it was an interesting way of approaching that one where it was much more lighthearted about them talking about these great stories that they had about guys who had traveled the world and like, got tackled by the Prime Minister's bodyguards and all this stuff. Whereas this one's much more small, grounded in the moment. And yeah, so this one, I think the directing is really great.
Yeah.
The performances are perfect. The music starts it off.
Yeah.
And it's so relatable.
Yeah.
Anybody who's had that situation, even just as a person, like when you're having memory loss, it's like, we've all had the moment where somebody's asked you something for the 15th time and you're like, I told you this already. But then like reminding you that isn't necessarily the norm and that could be the sign of something more sinister, especially among older relatives.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what the budget was or anything like that. I can't imagine the budget was huge.
No. It all comes down to writing and clever acting and blocking, and
because it's only one location.
It's
that house.
It's very,
so I wouldn't
very
be surprised if they
effective.
just rented a house.
Yeah. No, they did a really good job
all-
with the casting. I think as well.
Yeah, I think they've spent the money on the casting and the director, and then you've just got this very short, contained story that is like the small condensed story like they do in Pixar with Up and stuff like that, where you can see this story where, okay, yeah, for him it's like over the course of a day, but they condense like emotional story into like 90 seconds. And it's really well done.
Yeah.
And obviously the music is doing a lot
the
of
music
editing
does
as well.
the music does a lot of cutting the reel at the moment. The music sometimes is the hardest bit to get right, but it's that perfect kind of melancholy and kind of like, she's obviously playing that on the piano, which I think is quite clever as well. I think because it serves two purposes, right? It's trying to raise awareness around Alzheimer's, right? So the main purpose of it is to have people watching it and be like, oh, I get my relatives asking me a lot of questions, or my parents been doing that, my nan's been doing that, right? Like, because with something like that, especially long-term illnesses, if it becomes a norm and you're not aware of it. So I understand that, but at the same time, it has to be it has to land, right? It can't just be a piece that people watch passively. It has to be something that people engage with. I think it did a really good job at that. Well,
it's like, we often say to a lot of clients, and I'm sure other video companies will say it as well, it's like, you need to catch the viewer's attention, whether that be a really cool visual or like a really emotive story that's going to leave you thinking about something. Like, I'm sure most people watching that are going to take something from it, even if they don't necessarily have an experience or they don't have any older relatives that they're worried about that with. Just the idea that, this man can see his wife losing her memory slowly. Like, you're going to take that. That's going to hit you somewhere. Like, I'm fairly stoic, shall we say? Some would say grumpy. But yeah, I think if I, as a youngish guy, can kind of take that emotive response, like people who this is really targeted at, where you're more worried about your parents. You're in like your 40s or something, and your parents are kind of getting on to like 70s, late 60s, or if you are then in that age range and you're worried about your partner or whatever, just having that awareness of, okay, like this is a real thing. This is the early signs of it. It's if it's having that impact on me, then for those people, it's definitely going to kind of bang, bang.
And I understand as well, Alzheimer's is almost kind of generally reserved for older people, but and it makes kind of natural sense casting older people in it, but you're also targeting it at generations of people who tend not to go to the doctors about this kind of stuff. So I think having that short arc where, being asked the same questions, if it can sink in and they think maybe I will go and, see a GP or something about it and get it seen to, or get my partner seen to, I think that's quite a clever way of doing it as well.
Also, I like the whole thing of like, it's not called getting old, it's called getting ill or getting sick.
Yeah. I mean, how many people are you? I have it in my family where you speak to an older relative and they're like, oh, it's just getting old, and I think, listen, just go and get it checked out, right? Like,
and also like because it's not. I don't know how old these actors are or whatever, but I'm imagining like 60s somewhere in there, maybe late 50s. They're presented as being fully functional, like they're out walking in the rain, they don't have any problems physically. Like, they're not what you would typically associate with being like old and ill.
Well, she's dexterous as well. Like, she's obviously
she's playing the piano.
So there's no or no visible physical issues
Symptoms
there, which a lot of people associate with things like if you injure yourself physically, it's a lot easier to perceive and see.
But yeah, that was my first one. I decided to go in hard and heavy. But it does it really well. And I think
it does.
It's one of those things like they didn't. I don't think they spent a lot of money. But by having that good story and good performance from the actors, well directed, and then the editing itself is fine. It's nothing exceptional. It's not fancy or whatever. It doesn't have to be. It's the editing is there to serve the story. You don't really notice it, which is
Well, it's not jarring, and I
sort of
think that's clever as well. That in and of itself, it could be perceived as a stylistic choice, because if you're dealing with something like Alzheimer's or something like that, or even dementia, where it can be probably quite a jarring thing if you don't see the person regularly. If you're living with that every day, and those questions are coming at intervals every day, and you've been dealing with it for years, it will seem seamless. It will seem like it doesn't exist, right? Only by stringing it together like they did do you realise that, if these questions are coming 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, something as trivial as asking when they're leaving the next day, might be indicative of something more, more sinister, right? And I think they did that. They did do that really well. You're right. It shows clever script writing, clever castings. Directing, even intonation from the actors and stuff like that is sometimes trumps a big budget.
And I think it's definitely like you say, it's 100% proven that you don't need to spend a huge amount of budget to get something that's really strong.
But if you do spend a big budget. You can end up with something like I've got for my first advert, which is on the total other end of the spectrum.
They say you should try everything once. And they're right. As a fox of the world, I say you should try a Taiwanese meat cleaver massage. Skinny dipping. An endurance sport. But I'd probably skip trying a Carolina Reaper. That time's better spent discovering the unique taste of a refreshing old speckled hen.
So that's the first one, and then
that animation must have cost a lot of money.
Here you go.
They say you should try everything once. And they're right. As a fox of the world, I'd say you should try rap battling. I win. You eat from a dustbin. Declaring your undying love. A spot of taxidermy. But I'd probably skip licking a cane toad. That time's better spent discovering the unique taste of a refreshing old speckled hen.
Very loud.
I really like the animation style.
Yeah, okay. So it's made by a company called Red Knuckles, who specialise in animation. Like a big animation studio, and they've worked with Oppo, Old Spice, Indian Cricket, Homebase. There's a good chance we've seen a lot of their stuff. Their stuff around, and the gist behind the whole campaign was about bringing something fun and interesting to market. You've probably seen old speckled hen with the Fox Henry the Fox adverts like for ages, right? It says they've been running since 1994. And so they decided.
Old speckled hen is like, I never drink it, but it's one of those names that I've always known. I don't know why. I just know
well, look, they're trying to target this between the ages of 35 and 55, right? That's what this ad was designed to do. Probably trying to target probably like a sector of drinkers that maybe have never experienced old speckled hen before, because it's kind of not around. Probably you wouldn't associate with people around our age range, I would assume. But I really, when I saw it, I thought, oh, it's fun, right? It jumps out at you. The colours, the way that it looks, the writing is very clever. What I thought was interesting about it as well, especially when you look at like ads on TV at the moment, is it felt a bit risky. In the first one, he comes out of the water, and his fox genitals are blurred. And the woman's shielding her eyes, whatever it is, the hippo's shielding. Yeah. And in the second one, he's literally licking cane toad. The dude's taking drugs, right?
For an alcohol commercial to reference taking drugs, I was like, that must have been a legal minefield of, okay, what can we
like clearance, right? Like we've had to clear stuff for television before, and it's bad enough when you're dealing with even kitchen supplies or like books that might come out or making like statements about like theories behind teachings and stuff like that. So, and I'm thinking you've literally got an anthropomorphic fox licking a toad and having a trip. Right, like whilst paired with alcohol brands, and so I looked at it, but I also thought that the vibe behind it's interesting. Like he's experiencing the world, all of everything that the world has to offer: massages, skinny dipping, professing his love, taxidermy, licking cane toads, and what it always brings him back round to having a lovely, refreshing old speckled hen drink.
hen.
You know, it's a polar opposite to the Alzheimer's commercial, right? But
100%.
I thought that it was also interesting that they came out with two different versions of it.
So what was it? Just like a sequential thing where one came out slightly later than the other, or were they aiming at different markets? Because I can imagine like the Toad one, for example, probably playing to a younger market than the first one. But I don't know if that was the logic, or maybe they just.
I actually don't know. You know, in the readings that I had, it was just that it showed that coming up with like a couple of ideas and having a more widespread, kind of all-encompassing campaign. Yeah, I think helped. You know, and I think also with the budget. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be small. These guys are a renowned, animation studio. So the budget for it is just not going to be low. And with that budget, you have a massive team of writers, of artists, yeah, like coming up with design and stuff. So I'm wondering, because it's happened to us before, if the money was there and they came up with a pair of ideas for this ad that they really liked, if they just made both of them because the budget was there. And
because they're both 30 seconds.
Yeah, so
right?
both 30-second spots, and it says that they also ran 20-second versions with the tagline.
Wow, that is
Curiosity has its rewards, but then it works. If you chop the front of this off and just had the back end, like if you just made a montage of him saying all of these things that he's experienced, but that they weren't as good as Old Speckled Hen, that would be just as effective. It's almost of the ilk, and this is what made me sit up and notice this, of the Strongbow ad, where it didn't need to be 30 seconds. That immediately you're getting that visual style, like from the get-go, paired with like funny music. And
I mean, I can imagine this does very well on social for them,
Yeah.
because their art style is so.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it just looks really good, and the animation's really good.
Yeah.
And it's like tongue in cheek. They're kind of almost marketing at booze, kind of as it should be, which is like kind of quite fun, socially, like a little bit risky. But yeah,
I mean, I think we have to clarify that if you are looking for an animation, don't think you're going to get this on like a 10 grand budget.
No,
definitely not going to happen.
I don't. I
That's
have no idea.
Some high level.
I would be intrigued to know how much they spent on it. I couldn't find the numbers, but you're looking six figures, probably, maybe more.
I don't know. I think you could maybe get it done for 5, but it'd be high
five.
you're like up
The
there.
new work breaks.
And then obviously with the actual ad space, you're looking at quite a bit.
Ran for 4 weeks, which is interesting. It's not long.
Not long at all.
It's because ad spends.
It's crazy
ad
how
spend's really expensive.
stuff this goes,
Yeah,
man.
it's true. But yeah. Anyway, when I saw this on TV, it was one of those ones that I sat up and looked at, and I thought, oh, the writing's interesting, and the concept behind but the concept behind the script is like nothing new. It's like, oh, I've tried all of these things, and this thing's the best. But it was the visuals, the rich visuals that were paired with it, and again, like just the little things, him licking the toad, or the fact that parts of it looked like they were on like social media. Like I don't know if you clocked it, but when he's eating the Carolina Reaper, it's on a YouTube page.
I didn't know.
So it's little things like that I think are just like.
Because I did notice some other small gags, like the very small visual gags you always get in animations, where like the taxidermy, where it's a man, obviously that's the gag, but then like the moustache drops, and you're like, just small little visual gags like that that probably aren't really going to be noticed and don't add a huge amount, but they just add to that tone of like humor and lightness to it, which is great.
Yeah. Also, as well, and I didn't come up with this beforehand, so this is kind of me half riffing, but it does remind me a little bit when you go down the pub and you have that friend that has these insane stories, and you're sitting there a little bit like,
yeah. There's always that one in the group who's always done everything.
Yeah.
If anything you do, he can one up. Like, oh well, I did this.
And I'm thinking, you're just in a pub down Soho now, drinking £7 pints. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Yeah.
Although, to be fair, if somebody tells me they're into taxidermy, I'm probably going to walk away from that conversation quite quickly, because
hey, it's probably a skill set in and of itself, Don't knock it
I
until you try
I
it.
can't understand it. I cannot understand it. It just creeps me out.
You trying to
There's my kryptonite.
you trying to segue it into the next ad by talking about taxidermy?
No,
Is that what the next ad
I do
is?
not have any taxidermy.
My name is Chris Nickens, and I am Adidas' first sponsored athlete with Down syndrome. When I was a kid, I rarely saw anyone who looks like me in mainstream sports. And now, we're chasing that. Running changed my life, but now I want everyone like me to see possible for them too. This time, I'm runner 321. Next time, I want it to be you.
Very cool.
There we go.
Man, you're going for all the feels ones. I'm just picking ones that have cool production value.
See, I didn't really get a huge feel sense from this, and that's why I kind of picked it, because there's undoubtedly like a feel, a route that you could go, especially at the beginning where he's talking about how he never sees them.
I thought, that was
like him.
Yeah,
but they kind of pivot away from that, and instead it becomes this kind of like the music changes completely, the whole pace of the edit changes, and it becomes this much more
it's almost motivational,
empowered. Yeah, it's an empowered thing. It's not like it's so hard for these people to do it. It's no, we can do this. It's time for more of us to do it, and I want to show you that we can do it.
Yeah,
and so I really liked that kind of. It's far too easy, I think, when people talk about people with needs and disabilities and
like underrepresented
other problems. Being underrepresented, not being able to see people they can relate to, having physical things they need to adapt so they can, take part in sports and take part in everyday life, even if it's that difficult. But they don't go down that route. They go down these are people that are doing this, and it ties in with that whole impossible is nothing. And so that's why I picked it, because I was like, okay, this is a very different approach to what I was expecting the video to go down. I was 100%, especially at the beginning, I was like, okay, here we go, it's gonna hit me in the feels. But it didn't. It was like, okay, the music cuts.
It pivoted. Like, okay, it pivoted out. Damn. Yeah.
And all the shots become very similar to what you see with any other athlete.
It's true. The
close up, low angle, slow speed shots running through a puddle. You've seen that how many times?
From the car, running down the street.
Exactly.
Track shot,
So all this stuff that you would normally see for your traditional Adidas Nike athlete commercial.
It's true, actually.
They've just applied it to somebody as if they're just like everybody else.
That's clever. You know what? Now that you mention it, that does make sense. They've basically, instead of making the ad about underrepresentation in sports and the not seeing somebody that's like you in ads and in sponsorship deals and stuff like that, they've basically just made it like look, people can do this. You can do this.
It's the advertising equivalent of like walking the walk rather than just talking the talk. Like so many brands now preach social society's values, like, we've got to be good, we've got to be green, we've got to be inclusive, we've got to be sensitive to people's needs and stuff like that. And these are all great things to go with, but it's very easy to say, it's harder to do it. And okay, I don't know how much the follow through is going to be with this runner 3-2-1 thing they're doing. It's literally come out March this year, so maybe they've had a bunch of success with it and they're really driving it. But in advertising terms, at least, they follow through. They treated this whole commercial as your kind of typical sports commercial. They haven't kind of played up to this whole oh, well, look what we're doing, da 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 da. It's like they've treated this guy and the other athletes in the video as they would treat, your Kobe Bryants, your Michael Jordans. Okay, they're in a slightly different level because those guys are like once in a generation talents.
Yes.
But any other sports commercial, that lonely person running down a road, they have this very similar shots going on. It's the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, it is. And it is, as you say, it's the perfect, almost visual embodiment of walking the walk. They've underpinned it like they would almost with any athlete. If you see a basketball player, a footballer, whether it's the Black Lives Matter movement with like racial abuse or like overcoming poverty, or it could be anything. They've all got these backstories, and then from there it spirals out into your motivational ad. They made it despite the the mountains of adversity that they had to walk through to get to where they are. And this is exactly the same. Like they're trying to make this kind of guy, not a role model, I guess, but like
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to do exactly that because they're you open with he didn't see people like him.
Yeah, and I guess he's become
and now
the
he is in that ad that looks like. I mean, I say looks like every sports ad as if that's kind of.
It's not though, because these ads are effective. Right. Like you have to remember is that like. Young kids coming up, if they see a black athlete and they're like young black,
well, even just female athletes.
Exactly,
like, there's been a big thing recently, well, not big thing recently, but like there was a documentary on rugby, women's rugby. And a lot of it was just talking about how seeing women playing rugby needs to be normalized.
Yes.
Like it's not something that a lot of these women, when they were looking at stuff to get involved with, rugby wasn't something that came to mind. If you're somebody who has some sort of disability and you're not seeing any sports people with your disability or your need, then you're never going to associate that as something I can achieve.
No, yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah, just seeing yourself represented, and they've made a really good model there for how an ad like that can not come across as like an almost pandering. Yeah, exactly, pandering or virtue signal, or like an kind of like woe is me ad.
Well, I mean, we're literally just going into Pride Month now.
Yeah,
and it's that time where you start seeing all the rainbow flag logos coming out and all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, but you're doing the bare minimum. Like you're preaching and talking the talk, but what are you actually doing, and how are you actually
working to make things
following
better?
through?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And okay. Like I said, I don't know if Runner 321 how much it's gone on to do, but just by the way they've treated the subject and treated the athlete, it's exactly the way they would treat any other
exactly
athlete.
And they're opening a dialogue. They're like opening a dialogue about it, and in the right way, not in a kind of almost overt, kind of in your face kind of way. They just, as you say, they're making an ad,
and I don't think it feels like an Adidas ad. It doesn't feel like they've gone out their way to make something
different, right?
Like that's so different to what they are to try and include somebody. It's like, no, there's a space for you in our brand.
Yeah, this guy's like because that legitimate athlete, and he wants to tell his story and inspire others that are like him.
Yeah, it's that kind of like authenticity to the message where it's like, it's not setting off my bullshit like radar. Like you can see so many ads where they'll talk about how inclusive they are or how they really care about this or they care about that, and you're like, what's that smell? I smell something. Whereas this, I mean, again, I probably have to do some research on Runner 321 before I like praise them too much for it, but it's just by going out like this and establishing this is the style they're going to go with, it already fills me with more confidence that they're actually they're actually talking the talk and walking the walk rather than just smell something. So it was made by FCB Canada, who I have no real history of knowing anything about.
No idea.
But obviously they're quite big. I mean, you don't get an Adidas gig by being a small little company.
No.
But kudos to them, man. They smashed it out the park with that, as far as I'm concerned.
It does look great.
You got the
It
next
looks
one?
great. Yes.
You got a tough act to follow up now.
I was trying to segue into it. Like, speaking of home design, I've got B&Q ad here. A bunch of headphones.
So this is the one you've mentioned to me before, but I've been avoiding.
Yes. So I told Alan, I think Alan mentioned something about the B&Q ad, and I told him that I had seen it. And I said, look, avoid it, and I'll bring it up here, because it's just very clever. Like, from a pure design standpoint, set design standpoint, it's like on another level, but conceptually it's very interesting as well. So I'll play it. Maybe we can do a little discussion, and then maybe we can watch the behind the scenes afterwards. Okay, here we go.
Cool.
That's the color of my room where I will live. Pale lines drawn all day. Nothing to read, nothing to say. Blue. I will sit right down, waiting for the gift of sound and vision. And I will see, waiting for the gift of sound and vision.
I'm pregnant.
Change made easier with B&Q.
My tiny little brain had just exploded trying to figure out.
What an
how
ad
they
though,
made that.
right? Like, from everything, from a design level to, again, music to like casting, expressions.
So we were talking about in the beginning
Yeah.
with my ad, like you can have emotional reactions and you can have stunning visuals and these different methods of kind of grabbing your attention and making the brand and the message stick in your head. This one does both, because the whole like pregnancy thing and it literally turning your life upside down and then like showing the finished room and being like, oh, I'm pregnant, is a great little story. And it's something that people can relate to. But like visually, I don't know if the average person watching it will understand like how difficult it is to pull that off, because like I was looking for like, okay, where are they hiding cuts? Where are they like, because I'm just, my little brain was kind of like smoke
like out of it. Like
the
concept, it feels, the reason, there's a lot of reasons that I love it, right? I think it's, as someone who has worked in the industry for quite a long time, there's a lot of instances of coming up with ideas that are, for lack of a better phrase, like balls to the wall, budget no object, and you come up with ideas and you try and sell a client on it, right? And this is almost exactly one of those. Like, you sit down and you think, okay, it's B&Q. What do they want to advertise? The fact that they can change your home and the feel of your home, and what their catchphrase at the end. I can't remember what it was, but it's like,
they say changing your home
to fit your needs, right? So it's like
right?
it's just the concept behind it is gives you a lot of scope, and so I can imagine sitting there and them thinking, okay, well, how about it's a small family, three person family. The woman finds out that she's pregnant. And the space has to change, right? Because all of a sudden they've got a new family member coming. How do you visually represent that? How about she visually, metaphorically, having another kid in a family is quite a tough thing. So she climbs that hill up, right, to the top, them almost getting through and reconciling the fact that they're having another kid. And then she gets over the precipice and then she comes back down. Everything's nice and easy, right? B&Q has helped them change the space. She tells her other half about it and they embrace, the space is like perfect to live in.
I mean, it is full of visual metaphor. So you have her like climbing up the mountain. You have her sat at the peak, like the view from the top, and then the contrast between her having to climb up to just sliding down, climbing in through the window,
gently touching the wall, right? Like,
yeah, even like waving bye to her previous life before she starts climbing. Like she turns and she waves goodbye to her previous life and her previous house. It's like there's so many visual metaphors in there. Like you could.
I was thinking, like, if you were like a student and doing media or film and you had to write about it, like I could probably do a dissertation on that, and even just from like it. The fact that it all looks like it feels like it's done in one shot when it's like not. It's just so.
Yeah, that's why because I was literally looking at it going, okay, look, I can see you've gone through the wall, so that's a cut. You've hidden a cut there, but just I'm very interested to see behind the scenes.
Okay, well, look, I have here some supporting material. I got 3 videos. They're quite long. I don't know if we'll chop them out. I will almost definitely play them because we're like film and video nerds. So
holy,
I know, right? Shit. Like, look at the state of it.
That's the kind of job you would love to work on, whether you're a camera op, a runner, any part of that team. You'd be like, wow, like this is something I want to work on because they built the whole thing and then flipped it. They literally
like it's almost like on another planet that level of like set design. The stadium that they're in to do it all. Also, kudos to the camera op. What? Like that dude.
I mean, it was quite funny seeing the assistant like fall down when he's trying to like
just like
credit to him. Like that's some work.
To get that.
I don't think people appreciate how hard that is because I mean, I'm not a camera op, but I can appreciate you're trying to keep the frame properly. You hit your beats and your timings because the actor's got to hit theirs and you've got to try and keep pace. But then you're doing up a hill that's moving. You got stuff that's probably falling towards you that you're having to watch. It's just like the level of skill, and I don't want to know how many times they had to like cut and retake and
like
man, well done. Yeah. Hats off to everybody who
just
did that.
Purely from a sheer conceptualization and execution point of view, it's just on another planet, right?
Well, say you said at the beginning, like that's the kind of thing where you have this incredible idea, but with a lot of clients, you would have to compromise and find ways to cheat it. Okay, well, how are we going to fake this? Whereas these guys just got the money to build it practically and do it for real, effectively, and like it pays off because it looks real. Like you're looking at it and going, I can't see any like fake crockery that doesn't look quite right. You're not having to do a bunch of physics sims to kind of get
it looks
stuff
authentic.
The right
it's like a what's his name? A Guillermo like Del Toro film, right? Where you feel the difference between something that's CG and something that's real. And when it's tangible and you can see things moving around, like it
feels real because it is real.
It feels real because it also lends almost like I guess credence to the fact that like the concept of the ad is that like life is real and happens around you, right? Like, and it's almost like there's no like smoke and mirrors. We were saying this before, we've said this before. When a company, and it's B&Q, so they've got money, have money to make something that is stylistic and branded, almost money, no object, right? They're doing this because they likely could have done it cheaper. And it didn't need to be this big and grand, but they're doing it like this because of the way that it makes you feel and the way that it makes them look almost as well, right? Like,
Well, also, I mean, so the finished product is great, and it's like to have something they've gone that big on for a video is great for the brand because who else is going to put that out? That's incredible. But they can also then have the kind of behind the scenes stuff of, well, look, this is how we did it, and that's a whole new thing of like, okay, well, you guys really care about this stuff, like, and it's an underlooked thing because a lot of the time behind the scenes stuff. I mean, the video that we just saw of how the flip actually worked hasn't got that many views, but you can use that stuff on social. You can, and it's like, it just extends that life of the product and of the product of the video. And it kind of builds that kind of, image of the brand of being something that really cares about its messaging. Look, we went hard on this because this is something we believed in. And, that stuff is very hard to put a value on because it's very hard to come by. It's very hard to generate that kind of impression on an audience. And it's very easy to lose it. Because if they do this and then the next ad is kind of a bit half-assed, they could very quickly undo a lot of
those
the work
B&Q ads of old, which were
because
just
now they don't care.
Somebody putting a bit of paint on a wall and it was like a little bit, like we've come a long way. This is almost filmic in its levels of execution. Like, you saw the set, and we'll put pictures up and videos up of it. But that is no small feat. I'm sure I read somewhere that this was something like 2 million quid, and that seems low.
Well, I think that's how I saw it on one of the websites, and I mentioned to you how absurd the money seemed.
Well, now you've seen the ad, right?
But now I see where it's gone, and it's like, but this is the thing, because I saw the number and I was like, really? Like, do B&Q have that much money to be spending on that? But then you see what they got out of it, and you're like, you know what? If the impression that creates around your brand and the impression that creates on an audience, like, even if you don't understand the filmmaking and you don't really think about that side of it, just seeing this kind of seemingly one take ad where they literally flip everything upside down, it's gonna leave a thing in your head going,
because it's visually cool. And let's not forget, like, B&Q's like logo and stuff like that, it's like big in the UK. There's a B&Q probably not far from you. I could chuck a stone at the one near me.
Well, that whole thing of like in London, you're never more than like 100 meters away from a rat or whatever, probably less than that. In the UK, you're probably never more than like 2 miles away from a B&Q.
From a B&Q, so like they want to stand out, they want to look good. I got some quotes here that I'll read out, and we don't need to include them. I think it's quite interesting. Chris Graham, who's the B&Q director of marketing, said, "At B&Q, we're on a mission to ensure that improving a home and building a life with B&Q is easy and convenient. Whether via our stores or app or online at DIY.com, the Flip, which is the name of the advert, concept connected with us immediately, telling a story that is close to our hearts, a story of life, a story of change. It's home at the speed of life." End quote. I think that's an interesting insight into how they went in and pitched it, which is important. And then second quote here, which ties in with it, from a guy called Niels Leonard, I'm probably butchering it, co-founder of Uncommon Creative Studio, who are the guys who did it. And I will say now that they're no small, that studio, although they were, by the looks of things, they were started back in 2017. They won Independent Agency of the year 2019 and 2021, and UK Creative Agency of the year 2020 and 2021. So they're not small. Well, I don't know how big they are, but they're very good. But the co-founder of that said, "Nobody just wakes up and decides to improve their home. Life happens, things change, and your home needs to change with them. This film is a powerful story of change, made easy, all captured in one beautiful moment." And the comment here on the website that I'm looking at basically says that it will stand out in an ad break. And I think that's interesting because it will. But those two quotes give you a really good insight into how they went in and pitched it.
Yeah. I think the second one in particular, the first one sounded quite corporate. And I think they're definitely, we know when you're going into pitch, there's the emotional pitch that will get you in, but then you kind of have to corporate up a little bit to relate it to B&Q's values. And because they mention like the app and all that stuff. I'm like, the audience, when they're watching this, they don't care about whether I have to go install the app. All they care about is that idea that, okay, my life is changing. My house has to change.
B&Q.
Where am I going to go? B&Q.
This is almost in opposition as well. When you look at who they're trying to oppose here, like IKEA-esque almost. Like they're trying to put themselves in a position when you think, I need to go and get new stuff. You kind of think, well, let's pop to IKEA. I see this and I think, that B&Q ad changing life. I'm in a position now where me and my other half are potentially looking at having kids and stuff. I look at the ad and think, that actually is. It's not far off of the truth, right? You're looking at what feels like an insurmountable mountain, and if someone like B&Q makes that easy, which they do. I mean, I know it's obviously kind of high concept advertising. Yeah,
but it's all these subtle things that you kind of pick up. Even if you don't pick up unconsciously, you're subconsciously picking up on it.
Very clever. I like it.
All right, then.
Give me your number 3. Yeah, this is funny because I've had all 3 of mine are like totally different. My last one, trust me, you're not expecting it.
All right, let's go.
Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have. Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind.
I love it.
I mean, not that I've got a problem or anything,
It's so like visually, it's just like so Guinness.
It's that kind of simple visual, almost like a visual gag.
Yeah.
But they've kind of run with it and then tied it in. I don't know what came first, the concept or the actual visual gag sort of thing.
It's almost memeified though, because you kind of do that in everyday life almost when you see anything that's like black with a white bit at the top. It's always a bit like, it's Guinness. making you think of the pub.
I mean, it plays into how well Guinness's brand stands. Like it's so iconic.
Yeah,
the look,
that visual recognition.
The back with the white top.
Yeah,
it's such a strong visual recognition, and they also tie it into their old, good things come to those who wait.
Yeah.
Which has always been a thing because of how long it takes to pour a Guinness. And they've usually gone with their kind of what they had, the big one being the surfers, like tick full of top, full of tick. It's a very different approach, but this was March of last year, so May of last year. So coming out of COVID lockdowns and stuff like that, and being able to come back to the pubs, and it all ties into like this kind of quite nice, sweet little video that's about being able to go back to the pub with your mates.
Meet your mates. The whole "You're Always on My Mind" thing on the song, you're always thinking about.
I mean, I love that song, but I would never have associated that with Guinness. But now I'm not going to be able to not associate it with Guinness.
It's clever. I like that they don't take it too seriously. Again, it almost feels like we're in not a new era, but like the alcohol commercials that are coming out at the moment, I just think are very clever, working on levels and embracing what their branding is as well. Or even, I guess in Old Speckled Hen's case, coming up with new kind of branding and new like vibe out there for customers. But this is just, it feels high end. It feels very funny. It feels very post-COVID as well. It does.
I wonder if the whole shift that we're seeing in like alcohol marketing sort of thing is being driven by the fact that they've had such a rough time with sales over the last 2 years, effectively. I'm sure they saw upticks with people being locked at home and buying bottles of wine and stuff like that. But your brands that are more selling into bars or pubs and stuff like that, I feel like they've probably had a pretty hard time.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at...
And they're trying to now, how do we reach out to people? So you've got Old Speckled Hen going with a very different approach. You've got Guinness that just embraced this kind of like quite sweet, sentimental look here. Like, oh, look, you're finally coming back. We've all been through this together and now we're out the other side, especially when they're talking about giving all this money to help support pubs and stuff that have been struggling.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the Old Speckled Hen ad in contrast as well, that's a drink you would normally associate buying bottles of, but he's drinking it out of pint glass in a pub or he's in a bar, and it almost feels like this, where it's like you can go back to the pubs now and have a nice cold drink with your friends.
I mean, there is the cynical side of me that is very like, it's an odd territory for an alcoholic. I mean, an alcohol company is always going to be like, drink our product, but it does feel a bit weird when you're like, go to the pub, don't. Yeah. Why would you want to go home? Come to the pub and drink and be cool. And it's like, okay, it's a little bit weird. But I mean, that's alcohol branding in a nutshell, really. It's a little bit of a fine line to tread. And I think both of these do it quite well.
Yeah.
Like they're lighthearted enough that you're not taking them seriously. Whereas some brands, not so much recently, I don't think, but in the past, alcohol branding kind of got a bad rap for trying to glamorize drinking.
I got a real problem with some alcohol, not branding, commercials, mostly just the commercials taking themselves very seriously, and not even in like I hate it kind of way, right? Slight rants, but when I used to be a projectionist in a cinema, the amount of commercials, booze commercials, that would last a really long time, like minutes, like actual minutes.
Really?
Oh my god! And would just be about nothing. I remember one that I won't name, but it did last I don't even know. It was probably about 4 or 5 minutes, and it was like summer and like people jumping off of like rocks into lakes, and it's just like it feels so irreverent and like bizarre and like not really. But it took itself
It's always
too
so
seriously.
detached from reality. Like
it feels like some banking ads a little bit, where like you're watching them and it's like, okay, what?
For me, the problem I've always had with some of the alcohol brands is they'll go after like this glamorous lifestyle, and so you have some that will be like you're really cool guys in the bar, you're with mates, and it's like that's never where I've been drinking that drink.
No.
And it's kind of like this weird detached from reality of what actually being in a bar and drinking is. And then there's the other ones where it's like you got this whole really cool lifestyle, like on the south of France.
Yeah.
And then you got like this ice cold beer that tops it off. And they're going, well, that's not really what it's about either. No. And you know, it's not to criticize them for it, because you have to sell something. You have to find a way to sell it. But these two, I felt like did it more tastefully and more realistically.
But these are the ads that you'll remember. These are ads that you will remember in the future. Like, you know, the reason that I remember the ad that I'm talking about is because I didn't like it, because it felt too long and it didn't feel like it was telling a story or had a message, or, you know, even in this case was a bit funny, or like a little bit tongue in cheek, you know, like.
Yeah. See, the best adverts I remember from alcohol brands have always had a really good sense of humor about themselves.
It's exactly that. Yeah. Yes.
Like the adverts where they're doing kick-ups and in a circle he just fucking punts it. I'm not going to name the brand, but I'm pretty sure everybody's going to remember that commercial.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that is...
Or even the alcohol, a lot of they do a lot with alcohol-free commercials, or a little bit like, have a little bit of sense of humour. I think it's more of a modern thing. You know, I think you're getting less and less ads, alcohol ads now that like, you know...
Well, they're cracking down on this.
They're like they're driving in a drop top car, and then they pull up on the beach. Then like the dog gets out, and you know they get the ice cooler, and they're all sitting on like chairs, and I'm just sitting there thinking like, what is this? It's not film, like. No. Whereas this feels good. Like this feels fun and funny, and you know is telling a visual gag as well. Like you know the fact that you'll see it. You know
nobody is watching that and going like, oh yeah, all I was thinking about my entire lockdown was Guinness.
No,
but like that's the joke of like, you know, seeing Guinness everywhere. Oh, you're a bit of an alcoholic because all you see is Guinness. Like nobody's actually nobody's actually experiencing.
Yeah,
but like that plus the music, it's a bit tongue in cheek. Like, oh yeah, you know, we've all been waiting for it. So, you know, it's a fine line that they've tread, because you are kind of insinuating that you're an alcoholic because you've been thinking about it the entire time.
Yeah.
But I think they're on the right line of it, where it is kind of a bit tongue in cheek. It's a little bit funny and cheeky. Whereas, like you say, sometimes with the driving a really drop top car, going to the beach, sitting around a fire pit with your really good looking group of friends.
It's never happened.
It's like, oh my God, please.
This never happened. You know, like it would be interesting. I'd be interested to know. I know that the Old Speckled Hen one didn't. I don't think it went like international. I think it was UK based. These are very UK ads in that, like, you know, they're both like, the Old Speckled Hen is like, this dude's traveled the world and tried everything, and it's not as good as Old Speckled Hen. And then that ad's like, the whole of lockdown has gone past, and the only thing that you could think about is getting a nice cold Guinness. They play on the same thing in different ways, but I think it's
clever. A very British sense of humour.
Yeah.
because I think if I was with American friends and started talking about, or any other culture really, started talking about how all I could think during lockdown was Guinness, and I kept looking at Guinness, kept seeing Guinness pints everywhere, they'd think I had a problem.
Yeah.
Whereas in Britain, that's kind of like a,
Yeah.
oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the speckled hen thing, like, oh yeah, I travelled the world and all I really wanted was
to come back and have a pint. Yeah.
It's the same as like Shaun of the Dead, where their grand plan to ride out the apocalypse is to go
to the Winchester,
to the Winchester,
yeah, and have a pint. Yeah,
have a nice cold pint, and wait for this all to blow
yeah.
up. It's like,
because that's
very
the
British.
Humor. That's the humor. But also, it's there's both the ads, although more so the Guinness one plays into the whole, especially at the end. The song, obviously, I think is in relation to him seeing the Guinness everywhere, but it is also a little bit about getting back to the pub, meeting up with people that you haven't seen, experiencing that, that actual human interaction again, something I know nothing about.
Like I think they play the visual gag of like seeing the Guinness everywhere, but the real thing you'd be missing is being in the same space with your friends, like Zooms and Google Meets and every other bloody way of doing video calls and having a drink with your friends. Were great for like the first month or two, but you could very quickly realize they can't replace the real thing of being in the actual space.
Yeah,
and it's not as if they're doing anything. They're not at the beach around a fire.
No,
they're just in a pub, having a laugh.
Yes.
And that's what you think of when you think of having a pint.
It is, yeah. Being somewhere with your friends, having a drink. Unless you're an alcoholic, then he'd be sat on his own. But he's not. So it's fine.
All right, on that weird note where we're trying to tread the line between saying that we're not alcoholics and everything else.
I got one more.
Do you want to introduce your last one?
Got one more. Okay. This one, it's good. I thought it was really funny. He's getting written up for it. Okay. You got to see it as a Valentine's Day advert.
Okay. I think the Guinness one was a bit of a Valentine's advert.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a love letter.
Love letter to Guinness. Give it a card.
The alcoholic vibes are really coming through.
It was made by a German company and a German guy, I believe.
It's exactly what comes to mind when I think about
Valentine's Day. Yep. And it's mainly dispersed online. Okay, so probably there's a good chance you might have seen it. I don't know what its prevalence was like in this country. I've got to be honest with you, I was struggling for this last ad, so here we go. But it is really good. I think it's really funny, and it's kind of like,
you mean you saved the best to last, right? This is the B&Q one was the one when you were struggling.
I probably should have put that last, but I thought in the middle. What's the average viewer? The average viewing time of a person's 10 minutes. There's not much of this shit. Right, let me share it because it's funny.
Wonder how they were going to end that. I was like, how are you going to have this heartbroken spider that I've somehow found in a key?
Right? Yeah. Oh, I'm getting noise. Yes. So I liked it because I thought there's a lot of undertones to it, as there are with all of the adverts that we've had. I think the funniest thing is that, and I only got this on a few viewings, that the main undertone and concept for me is not that the spider is obviously in love with the phone because it's got multiple eyes, or that the spider is very cute and they've helped you. They've almost like made you sympathize with the spider and like the spider. It's the fact that that billboard was up long enough that the man bought the phone. I think that's really funny. Because that is the concept behind it. That
the ad is literally in your face the entire time, and it just like brainwashed him subconsciously
to buy the phone, right? I think that's really funny. That probably I don't know if people are going to get that from it, but I thought that was really funny. That billboard's outside that man's house, and that the man bought the phone, and obviously the spider's in love. But I like it because it's very tropey. Like spider sees a phone. And it's love at first sight.
Love at first sight.
And all he can do is look through that window at the phone, and he's swinging on his web, and he's touching the pool of water, and then it goes away, and his little things come down. You know,
it's very self-aware. Like it knows it's playing into all those tropes because you've got to lean on those things when you're trying to tell this like love story, and in what was that, just over a minute? I think?
Just over a minute. Yep.
Like you have to lean on the tropes a little bit to kind of we have this shared understanding of what this means.
Yep.
Especially when you're then trying to personify a spider into being cute.
Yep.
You have to lean on whatever you can to get the message across. And I think it did really well because like my first, as we get towards the end, I can feel the end of the commercial coming. Like, how are they gonna pay this off? Because this spider's gonna be like heartbroken.
Yeah, because the phone. He's like, is the guy gonna get the phone, or like, where's it gonna come back in? Right. I mean, the tagline that they dispersed it with was that love has no boundaries, right? I think that's kind of quite funny. It's tied in with Valentine's Day, and it's all put together really well. And the man obviously gets the phone because he's seen it out the thing, and the spider covets the phone. I think it's there's a lot going on. I think it's quite a clever showcase of how an advert can have very little to do with the phone's camera speed, specs,
features,
anything, just its look, but still probably make you go and look at what the phone is online because it's a clever advert.
Well, I mean, this is that thing that a lot of big brands can do really well, is where they don't have to tell you what the product is. They don't have to show you all the bells and whistles. No. They just have to do something that catches your attention. Ideally shows the either a lifestyle or shows the product or brand in a desirable way, and then just put their logo at the end, and you're going to probably go and look at it, or you're going to think, oh, I need a new phone. What am I thinking of? Oh, well, Samsung have got that new phone. Yeah, I'll go and have a look at theirs. I quite like the fact that they're embracing the fact that all these cameras we get on the back of our phones
it's starting to look like
because like the old one with the iPhone was like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think it's Commando with the rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Like that was a meme for a while.
They do it now.
They've
We've
just
got
gone with
Pixel
spider
6,
thing.
isn't we? And it looks like they say it looks like what's his name from Star Trek?
Geordie LaForge.
Yeah, like with his right? Like
LeVar Burton with the visor.
So that they're embracing that, which I think is clever. Also, that's no small ad. The animation in that.
Well, I mean, to build that spider, I think I've seen the spider. I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
ad,
I think the spider was a thing. For Samsung for a while.
So that might have been where they kind of like started playing up to the whole 4 eyes on the back of the whatever. But to like you say, to model that, and it looks, you can tell it's CG.
It feels real when it's moving, when it's swinging.
But it's CG, but it's not cartoony. No. It feels there's enough cartoony in there to make it cute.
Yeah. Well, I reckon I would love to know what the design process behind that was with the team, like to ride that line between the spider looking semi-realistic but not too cartoony. Like it hasn't come out looking like a Pixar film or like a Disney film. Like it's still got the hairs and it looks like a spider, but it's kind of got that like Disney eyes.
It's a very that's the thing. It's got eyes are a really good way to make characters cute.
Well, and the little things on the side of its head when they turn down.
Like any way they can emote.
Yeah. A spider. You felt
brilliant.
Like sympathy.
I'm not a big fan of spiders, to be honest. Like I will try to stick them in a cup and throw them away, but if I think that fucker's going to climb up my leg, I'm just snapping it. I'm sorry. Like it's not. No. It's just that fight or flight response from like.
I like the spiders in the summer. Spiders in the summer are good because they catch all the other creepy crawlers, and I have a clear conscience because I haven't had to smash them. Yeah, but you know what? There wasn't too much that I had to say about it. I just thought that it was very strong, visually had a strong visual identity. That the underlying concept there of that billboard being there and the man buying the phone, I thought was hilarious because, like, you know, that poor bloke, like, whatever they're putting up afterwards, what is he going to buy that too, right? Like
every morning he wakes up and there's just okay.
Yeah, you know, and the music, I thought everything, just the whole thing tied in really well, and it just seemed like a really fun concept that Samsung let them go, you know, hog wild with, and that they executed really, really well. Like, it could have been a disaster if that spider had come out too cartoony. You know, you'd have lost the people that had the money to buy the phone, and if the spider had come out too realistic, you know, there's going to be people looking at it thinking, like, nasty. Like, it's almost like saying, you know, all of these cameras on the back are functional, you know, and they might like look ugly, but like, does it really? If you take another look, like, the spider's kind of cute. Maybe the phone's kind of cute, you know.
Yeah, it's really well done. And,
well, they are all adverts as well. That if you take these, maybe less so the Samsung one, unless there was a cut down version that was put on TV. Although to a degree on the internet, it's the same kind of concept. If you're getting peppered with ads, but the B&Q ad, and the Old Speckled Hen and Guinness and Adidas, and it was Adidas. It wasn't Nike, was it?
No, it was Adidas.
Adidas and the Alzheimer's. Age UK. Was it Age UK or is it Alzheimer's? Is it the Alzheimer's?
Just Alzheimer's.
One.
Age UK was something else.
They all stand out, sandwiched between other ads. That's what I love about them. That they've obviously gone to good companies, you know, whether it be with a lot of money or a little bit of money, and they've listened to the people giving them advice. They've come to them with concepts, and they've let these creators run, and they've facilitated the ideas that they've come up with. And you know, if you're watching that between, you know, your normal ad, and then that pops up, that's getting you to sit up and take notice, because it's a perfect blend of everything, of writing, of visuals, of music, of concept, of feel, like the various feelings, whether it be inspirational or motivational, or it makes you like think, like the Alzheimer's one does.
This is the thing as well, like, I don't think any of these ads cost a small amount of money.
No.
But there's definitely degrees. Like, B&Q is probably by far the most expensive, just because of the physical set you had to build. Old Speckled Hen is probably quite expensive because of the art style and the amount of people you would have to get to animate it. Samsung is probably quite expensive because of the CG,
got a CG
spider.
spider, right? Yeah.
But the Guinness one and the Alzheimer's one are pretty damn cheap, to be honest, to make.
You know, even comparatively, probably the Adidas one wasn't that like.
And but like they are still going to stand out because they've found a way to visually stand out, use a sense of humor or a story to stand out. Like you say, you put any of these 6 ads in amongst just stuff you can see on your average TV break or before a YouTube ad, before a YouTube video, an ad. I hope there's not more. Any of these places, they're going to stick out and they're going to catch your attention. And they're telling stories and you know, getting the message across in between 30 and like 90 seconds.
It's such an art form people don't realize, to be able to condense an arc, a story, characters, feelings into 30 seconds, a minute and a half. Some of these is like, it really is a difficult thing to do, like, you know, and it's something we've obviously had a bit of experience with it, and these guys are obviously specialists in the craft, but there's a reason that you go to people that you're resonating with, but that also can like execute it. Like if the guys if B&Q had gone to somebody, and I'm sure they vetted a lot of people, but had gone to somebody who weren't Uncommon Creative Studios, who didn't have the skill set and the freelancers, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say that it wouldn't have turned out the way it was, because at the end of the day, you know, if you're like a smaller company, you can crew up and meet the right people. But for an ad like that B&Q of that scale, like, there's probably very few companies that can execute that to that level.
Yeah. Also, I think a bigger company's going to have the balls to do it.
Yeah.
Like, if me and you have to go and pitch in for B&Q, I don't think we would feel confident enough to go with them with that kind of pitch.
Well, maybe you would temper the idea before it got to the door. Whereas if you're working for Uncommon and you know, well, look, you know, you give us £2 million and we can build a 24-ton 7-story set, or whatever it is, 8-story set, right? Like, we know we can do it. You know, that's the good.
Whereas I think if you're in a smaller end we could come up with, we might even have that very same idea, but we're like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get that amount of money from that company to do that? Like, we're not going to do it.
Well, but then but the Alzheimer's and the Adidas, which are more realistic budgets, is like that's more writing and conceptualization, and then the execution there is putting together a solid crew. Because at the end of the day, like I wouldn't even know where to start trying to find somebody that could build this B&Q set. But I know, I know plenty of people that could.
I mean, just the fact that we're talking so much about the B&Q video tells you all you need to know about how effective that was in that, because that's the one I keep thinking about.
Yeah. It's just so big.
But all of them took. I mean, the Alzheimer's one and the Guinness one took less of a risk, I think.
Yeah.
Adidas, I don't think there was a huge risk there, but I think they broke the mold in the way they were going to approach. The subject.
Yes.
B&Q took a huge risk, and it paid off massively for them.
Even
Samsung,
even old speckled hen. If you look at what the old speckled hen adverts were like, branding. It's like this is such a full scale change
departure. Yeah, and I think having like your internal marketing team and the board above who have to sign off on a lot of this stuff, be willing to take those kind of risks can pay off massively. Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be a risk involved, but these are all the ones that are going to stick out in our minds because they've taken that risk and it pays off.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't, but
I
mean, it's very easy for me to turn around and say I'll take that risk when I'm the one front in the cash flow, right?
Yeah.
Like putting the brand on the line. But you're not doing it recklessly.
No, that's why you work. That's why you work with professionals and take their advice as well. Like there's you can see it so a lot of these articles, and I'll link some of them out as well. You read about them. There's always quotes where they're like, "Oh yeah, we worked extensively with the company so that we all felt comfortable, that the chemistry was there, that the concept was there, that the ideas were there." Like you're going in with as many best feet forward as you possibly can, and if you're very rarely is it going to tank, unless there's some kind of big force pushing the ad in a different direction, and you've let somebody have a bit too much creative control. And a perfect example of that would be the Pepsi commercial with Kendall Jenner, if you remember that.
Oh, where she was like separating out a riot or something by handing out Pepsis.
Like Pepsi can bring the world together. And so that, again, the concept there, fine, if that's what they want to roll with, but that was just not the way of doing it. That smacks to me of somebody
jumping on a bandwagon,
but also somebody just having too much creative control over it. Because if I was in the room there and they come up with that idea, I would probably be saying, well, look, I really don't think that's going to work.
I think in general, any kind of video project, even if it's not like an ad, if it's just a small like product video or something like that, you need to be engaged for more than just like a one-off meeting and here's a brief and off you go. Like you need to be having that constant dialogue, because I guarantee you, like they were saying, where we were constantly engaged and have all these meetings, that's what made the brands feel comfortable taking that risk, because they've been heard, they've been part of the decision-making process. They understand why you're doing what you're doing, what the theory is behind it. And it makes it a lot harder on our side. Makes it a lot harder for the client then to change their mind as well. Because if we've gone through it with them for the last 2-3 months of, okay, this is the concept, this is the script, this is what we're aiming for, this is what we're hoping people have as an emotional response.
The outcome,
and a more number-based outcome as well. I'm sure businesses will want to know, okay, well, we want so many more people to hit our website, or we want to see an upsurge in sales or whatever. But you need to have those outcomes agreed at the beginning, because that's always going to shape what you make. But so many people, I think usually on the client side, but sometimes in our side as well, just want to have the one meeting, maybe two, send a brief across, write it up, send a script back, get that signed off. And there's not that kind of back and forth where you're getting buying along every step of the way. Yes, it's more time consuming and it can mean that stuff is slower to make. But
in the ad space, in the ad space, it's essential. I think depending on what your other video needs are, you can probably get away with a couple of meetings. But
I mean, I'm not going to say like you treat a 2 million ad the way you're going to treat like a 15 grand video or something like that, or an 8 grand video. But you know,
you want those goals aligned.
You'll
You'll get so much more out of it if you put more.
You can definitely do it on a smaller budget. You can definitely do it in one meeting, maybe two. But you need to go in with the idea of, okay, well, what are the outcomes you want? What is the concept, and can I get you buy-in on that? And how does this fit into your brand? Like Adidas, the visual style and everything is very Adidas.
Yes.
The subject matter isn't something I would have associated with Adidas, but having seen that ad, it doesn't feel like it's not an Adidas.
No, they've done it so naturally. Yeah, it ties totally into what is the Adidas feel.
Feel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so it works for both ways, because you know Adidas in that conversation and all these other brands would have had their input and felt heard and listened to. And there's a producer or an agency side. The last thing you want is to be running off of this idea that you've kind of got signed off on because they've seen the script and they've seen some style boards or whatever, and maybe a reference video or two. And then you run off with it, and then they come back and like, oh, this is what we thought we were getting.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what do I do now?
That's not a good feeling for anyone, you know. But that usually comes from just like a lack of feeling or being invested in the process. Like these
and being honest.
Honesty is a big one, you know. But these videos these videos weren't created overnight or over a week or probably even over a month, right? Like there was a lot of time investment, not even necessarily money investment, but time investment in getting that message right. So that when it came down to, you know, the day that they filmed it or the days that they filmed the video on, that when it got to post and things were put together, it came out as close to what they went in thinking it was going to be as it possibly could be. And okay, there's leeway, you know, like we're not talking about, even on smaller productions, you can do it as well. Like if you put the effort in to conceptualize it and think about it and script it, as you say, and then you're going to come out with something that's like so much better. That's thought about, you know.
And I think both sides have to have that honesty about them and the trust in the relationship that you can stick your hand up and say, I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah.
Whether that's the client saying, look, this doesn't work for our brand, or the creator saying, like, look, I don't think this is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
People aren't going to watch this. I guarantee, well, I don't guarantee, but I would put money on the fact that the Pepsi commercial, for example, was something that was pushed by Pepsi's board and people up in the high in the ranks in Pepsi.
Yeah.
Was pushed by the creative board.
Yeah.
By the creative people in those meetings. Just because I would imagine the creative people would have a bit more of an idea of how that might blow back and how that might look bad.
Yeah. It's the difference.
That's just my assumption.
I think that you're probably right. Well, you know, as right as we can guess being, but I think it's the big difference between people wanting to hire a video team / production company, people wanting to hire a creative team and company. Like there's going to be people hiring you to just make what they want you to make. That's fine. But there are certain times where you want to hire people that are creative and industry professionals, that are script writers, you know, that are concept artists, to come up with things, to work with you through it so that you're going to come out with something that's stronger brand it's like better or stronger, or that's going to hit a certain message.
And that's not even to say you have to go with like the big boys, because the Guinness, the Alzheimer's, the Adidas, the Samsung, you probably could do with a smaller company as well.
Yeah. Well, we have real world applications of it with companies like Sussex Safer Roads and stuff, where we worked alongside the scripting of it and the conceptualization of it and the delivery of it and the casting, because we knew that as their first big introduction to video, that they would get a better product working alongside people that had done it for years. And it was a perfect collaboration, and they came out with something that was great and really effective and really worked. And it wouldn't have been that if they had just treated us like a video company and just given us a script and we had just made it, you know, like we had to think about every facet of the of the pre-production, production, post-production of it, and go through it all with them, so that they ended up with something. And they listened as well, and we listened to them. It being a collaborative experience, I think it's important.
I would be interested to see. I mean, I don't think we'll ever get the ability to see because of the closed nature of the deals that were made. It would be interesting to see what other pitches were going on when these ones were chosen.
Yeah,
because I can imagine these were probably the more wild card type pitches.
Yeah. Yes, I bet you. I would be really interested to see what the other pitches were coming in to it, because there wouldn't have just been one. I promise you that.
Yeah, but the ones I mentioned, even the ones that are made by the big companies, like Abbott, Mead and Vickers made AMV, BBDO. They're huge, and they're the ones who made the Guinness ad. But anybody could have made that.
Yeah. It would be it would be in the pitch, be in their ability to pitch it, and get the feeling, get the chemistry as well. Like sit down and think.
Yeah, they've come up with an idea that's, not technically difficult, creatively isn't revolutionary, but it's different enough, and then they found a way to pitch it to whoever's in, and they've got the buy-in.
Yeah,
off Guinness, off Adidas, off Alzheimer's, off B&Q for the big stuff. They've, in the little quote that you read, they convinced them with. I guarantee you that line that you read out, that's how they pitched it.
Yeah, that is. I promise you that is that. So I reckon you probably won't find a more transparent, view into how they pitched an idea. As he said here, nobody just wakes up and decides to improve their home. Life happens, things change, and your home needs to change with them. This film is a powerful story of change made easy, all captured in one beautiful moment.
That's 100% how I would have pitched it if I was going to.
You finish that's how you finish. Like, if you go into a pitch and you've put some stuff together, it's what you say to them. That we've got this brilliant idea, and it all plays into what you embody and want to embody as a company, and you're going to end up with something here that is incredible. And I promise you, that's what every pitch was like. For Alzheimer's one, I bet you pitched them, and everything about that ad embodies what it is. But they didn't come out. They say they didn't come out with these ads after one meeting. It just didn't happen.
No,
they came out with them after lots of collaborative meetings and conversations and scripts, and yes, it is a lot of work, and it can potentially be expensive, although it doesn't have to be. But you're gonna come out with a better video of it, and development is so important for this kind of stuff. These ads don't just pop out like this. There has to be a certain level of work putting into them.
No, even the ones that aren't technically difficult, where you have to do lots of rehearsing, you have to wait for a set to be built, and you're having to build miniatures and stuff like that. Stuff where, like the Alzheimer's one, for example, I guarantee you that script went through so many revisions and so many different tweaks, and the edit would have gone through dozens of little things, just trying to get the timing to feel right and hit the emotive beats properly. And it's worth it because of what they got, but it takes a lot longer. I think there's a difference. The difference for me between the way the big brands do it and the smaller brands do it is usually the amount of time they're willing to put into something. Yeah, because they associate time being money, and usually if you're engaged in a company for a longer period of time, it's going to be more money. Yeah, doesn't always have to be, but usually there will be. Yeah, but all of these ads will have taken time to develop and build, and
it's almost more important. It's almost more important than the prod.
Some of the TV commercials we've done, it's like, oh yeah, we want it done within 2 months. Yeah, from start to finish. You're like,
I mean, we can.
Okay, so we're going from nothing to a finished video in 2 months, and it can be done. But you're not going to get the same sort of impact that you're going to get with any of these adverts. No. Well, I think we've been preaching for long enough now, because we're almost at an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, so do some editing on this.
Oh yes, this will definitely be cut down. So when I've said an hour and 40 minutes, we shot this in 30 minutes straight, and that's what we're seeing. We didn't edit this. But so hopefully we'll do this again in 2 to 4 weeks at some point. Yeah.
But we need some time to find some more adverts. But it's good. I like the range actually come up with them, and it's good discussing them because it opens a lot of things up and kind of. I
mean, even if nobody ended up watching this, dude, it's been interesting to watch stuff.
It's been fun. It's been fun. I mean, if anyone watches it, I don't care. I just like watching adverts. That's my jam.
We're going to keep putting it out anyway. So
improve the SEO on the website and stuff, right?
Oh God. Don't talk to me about SEO and website stuff.
Oh dear.
Anyway,
Cool.
we'll catch you soon.
Yeah.